Alright, you picked the right one. After I dropped my last autopsy on Tariq Nasheed, my comment section turned into a digital psych ward. A swarm of foundational black American internet trolls lost their foundational black ass minds. They screamed that I was a tether. They screamed that Latinos are nothing but gentrifying tourists who want to steal hip hop from black Americans. What you think, typing insults in all caps changes the history? You think a YouTube comment erases the archives? Well, by the end of this video, we're gonna permanently evict Tariq Nasheed and his FBA isolationist cult from the house of hip hop. We're gonna destroy the xenophobic Tether ideology, pull the receipts on the South Bronx, and drop so much undisputed history that his entire separatist grift will collapse under the weight of the truth. What up, y'all? It's your boy, yo man, aka O the Dread. Before I drag my intellectual nuts across this nigga Tariq's forehead, I have to send a massive shout out to Cam James and FD Signifier. Thank you both for inspiring this video. And much love to the homie Logix for being a huge supporter and all-around solid dude. Make sure to check out their channels, I'll link them below. But right now, public enemy number one is Tariq Nasheed. Now, I told you in the last video exactly who I am. I'm a former rapper, I'm an Afro-Latino, and I've been a member of the Universal Zulu Nation for going on 2 decades. I didn't learn hip-hop history from a predatory blog looking for clicks. I learned it from the architects who poured the concrete. Tariq Nasheed and his followers are currently running one of the most toxic, historically fraudulent campaigns in modern black politics. They claim hip-hop is an exclusive 100% native black American invention. They claim anyone with Caribbean or Latino blood was just late arriving students who copied their homework a decade later. Let me kill this straw man right now so the FBA bots can't clip me out of context. Puerto Ricans did not invent hip-hop. Black Americans invented the elements that eventually became the sound of hip-hop. The rhythmic engine, the funk, the vocal cadence, that is pure, undeniable black American genius. But Puerto Ricans definitely weren't guests walking into a finished mansion. They were the mortar in the bricks. They were co-architects on the construction site, building side by side with black Americans from day one. Today, we're taking out the trash. We're gonna destroy the student versus architect myth. We're gonna pull the archival data on the Intra-American slave trade. And finally, we're gonna diagnose the psychological rot of the intellectual slumlord and serve Tariq Nasheed, along with the rest of his FBA cult, a permanent eviction notice from the house of hip hop. To understand how Tariq operates, you have to look at the weapons he uses. He doesn't fight fair. He fights like a coward hiding behind human shields. Enter Lord Jamar and Fat Joe. Now, we already dealt with Lorenzo DeCalis, aka Lord Jafar, you know, the world's first god-body flat earther. He's a bitter, aging rapper who became furious and apparently brain-dead when the industry left him behind. Tariq's xenophobic ideology was the perfect drug for his stupefied bitterness. Whether it was a direct conversation or just a result of hanging around the same echo chamber, Jamar caught the virus. Suddenly, we have a 90s legend sitting on Vlad TV parroting the same FBA talking points, screaming that Latinos are guests. And who do they constantly point to as their ultimate proof? Fat Joe. Now, I already told you the reality about Joseph Cartagena. Fat Joe is a cultural chameleon. He lived off the stolen valor of Big Pun. He's a fraud of the highest order. He's also wrong about hip-hop being 50-50. I mean, that's impossible when the first officially recognized hip-hop party was thrown by a Jamaican. But Tariq uses Fat Joe's fraudulence as a weapon of mass destruction against an entire ethnicity. Tariq points at Fat Joe and screams, "Look at this culture vulture. Puerto Ricans are trying to steal hip-hop." He uses another modern-day race grifter to erase the blood, sweat, and tears of the actual 1970s pioneers. Tariq needs Fat Joe to be the face of Latinos in hip-hop because if the face of Latinos is a proven liar, then Tariq never has to answer for the real heroes. He never has to answer for the Puerto Rican gangs who shed blood to help make the culture possible. I'm currently producing a mini documentary on the complete, uncut history of hip-hop that'll drop on this channel soon, but let me give you an appetizer right now. In 1971, the South Bronx was a literal war zone. The city abandoned the borough. The streets were run by militant gangs. The largest was the Ghetto brothers, founded by a Puerto Rican visionary named Yellow Benji Melendez. When the violence reached the boiling point, Yellow Benji sent his peace ambassador, a brother named Cornell Black Benji Benjamin, to negotiate a truce. Black Benji was brutally beaten and did not survive his injuries. The Ghetto brothers had the numbers to retaliate and turn the Bronx into a graveyard. Instead, Yellow Benji called the whole Avenue peace meeting. He brought black and brown gangs together and brokered a historic borough-wide peace treaty. That treaty cleared the parks. That treaty stopped the stabbings. That treaty created the integrated safe space that allowed DJ Kool Herc to bring his massive sound system outside to 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. Black youth created the spark, but Puerto Rican blood brought the safety for that spark to catch fire. We helped secure the perimeter. We'll cover that extensively in the upcoming documentary, but the FBA cult will pivot. They always pivot. They'll say, okay, well, maybe they were in the gangs, but they didn't create the art. They were just students learning from Black Americans 10 years later. Let's dismantle that historical illiteracy right now. Look at graffiti. Tariq wants to claim graffiti is an exclusive FBA invention. Well, 1974, a Puerto Rican kid named Lee Quinones hits the subway system. Alright, hold up, because I know y'all gonna come for me if I don't say it. We all know the story about Cornbread out in Philly in the late 60s who was doing graffiti, and people like to call him the first graffiti artist. But you know what Tariq won't tell you? He won't tell you about Taki 183, the Greek Italian here in New York City who was doing graffiti at the same time Cornbread was out in Philly. Or he won't tell you about Julio 204, the Colombian who was also doing graffiti at the same time as Taki 183. He also won't tell you about the reptiles, you know, the famous reptiles that you see all over the most famous graffiti artworks all over New York City. Yeah, those reptiles were inspired by a white cartoonist named Von Bodie. So I'm really not trying to hear all the separatist talk, but by November 1976, Lee and his multi-ethnic crew, the Fabulous Five, paint the first whole train. 10 subway cars, top to bottom, fully painted, riding through the 5 boroughs. He wasn't a student copying homework in the mid-1980s. He was writing the visual language of the culture in 1974. Let's look at the DJ. The FBA narrative completely erases DJ Disco Wiz, born Luis Cedeno to a Puerto Rican father and a Cuban mother. He was in the parks in 1975. In 1977, Disco Wiz and his partner Grandmaster Caz, you know Grandmaster Caz that was in the Mic Check documentary, they created hip-hop's first mixplate. It was a pioneer dub recording. They utilized Caribbean sound system techniques, sound bites, special effects, and pause beats. A Puerto Rican and Cuban DJ co-authored the fundamental recorded grammar of hip-hop 2 full years before Rapper's Delight even hit the radio. Look at b-boying. James Brown gave us the foundational floor work. That is undisputed. But the acrobatic power moves, the dynamic drops, well, let's look at the Rocksteady crew formed in 1977. Look at Santiago Jojo Torres, a Puerto Rican co-founder. Look at B-Boy Spy from the Crazy Commandos, known as the man with 1,000 moves. Spy invented the 6-step. Spy invented the baby freeze. These Puerto Rican kids took the rhythm and weaponized it with athletic gymnastics in real-time collaboration with Black Americans. You cannot separate the Black American from the Afro-Latino in the South Bronx. They lived in the same projects, ate the same government cheese, dealt with the same racist police force, and built the exact same culture. It was an irreducible polyethnic machine. I could sit here all day and play you 100 different interviews to prove this. I could pull up the archives of Africa Bambaataa explaining how the Universal Zulu Nation was explicitly integrated from its inception. I could show you original party flyers from 1976 billing Black and Puerto Rican DJs on the exact same ticket. I mean, look at DJ Charlie Chase, the first high-profile Puerto Rican DJ to gain massive visibility. He entered the scene in 1975 and co-founded the legendary Cold Crush Brothers in 1978. His original MC was Prince Whipple Whip, the first Puerto Rican MC. The actual pioneers, the men and women who were in the parks, have never denied the coalition, and the few who do are flat out lying for personal clout. The only people truly denying the Black and Brown coalition are internet race baiters who were nowhere near the Bronx when the foundation was laid. Historian Juan Flores documented this dynamic perfectly. He called it the re-encounter of the African diaspora. Puerto Rican youth didn't simply copy Black American styles, they brought a musical kinship rooted in the syncopation of bomba and plena. These Caribbean rhythms carried deep African roots, and they provided a natural rhythmic template for the rap cadence. The heavy drum breaks of Black American funk locked in perfectly with the Puerto Rican percussion. The DNA recognized itself. When Tariq Nasheed tries to slice Latinos out of this history, he isn't protecting hip-hop, he's amputating its limbs. So now, we have to diagnose the disease. We have to look at the FBA ideology itself. Tariq Nasheed realized that Pan-Africanism and global solidarity don't generate super chats. Fear generates cash, hate generates clicks. So he created the foundational Black American movement.
And I started using the term Native Black American, but sometimes that term would confuse people because they thought, well, do you mean a Cherokee who's mixed with Black? Do you mean a Choctaw who's mixed with Black? So that term would be somewhat confusing. So I said, let's do another term. Let's tighten that term up so that there won't be any confusion. So foundational instead of native, because black people, we are the founders of this nation, meaning we're the foundation. We built this nation from scratch.
So
White people couldn't even say that they did that. But go ahead.
you changed that term?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I came up with the term foundational black American based on native black American from Claude Anderson.
And what's their primary weapon? The word tether. They use tether to describe black immigrants, Jamaicans, Nigerians, Haitians, etc., who they claim are coming to America to steal their resources, steal their jobs, and steal their culture. Does that sound familiar to you? Huh? Well, it should, because FBA ideology is just white supremacist great replacement theory wearing a dashiki. Tariq Nasheed is running Jim Crow cosplay. He uses the exact same nativist, xenophobic, America First, blood and soil rhetoric that the Ku Klux Klan uses, but he packages it as pro-black empowerment. He's begging the American government for a designated native status so he can build a walled garden and lock out the rest of the African diaspora. I mean, look at the lengths this man goes to in order to separate himself from his own people. The FBA movement literally tries to claim they are indigenous to the American landmass to avoid being called immigrants. They point to the 1526 Ayllón expedition in South Carolina, where 100 enslaved Africans rebelled against the Spanish and fled to go live with the Guale tribe. Tariq and the FBA used this localized escape to say, see, we were here before 1619, we're native. That's an intellectual fraud, because those 100 rebels in 1526 didn't just fall out of the sky. They weren't born from California soil. Where did Ayllón get those slaves from, Tariq? He gathered them in Santo Domingo. They were residents of Hispaniola. I mean, talk about the irony. Tariq is using a Caribbean migration story to argue that he has no connection to the Caribbean. He's claiming native status based on the lineage of the very people he calls tethers. You want to draw a magical line in the shoreline, but the archives don't lie. Look at the Intra-American slave trade database. The transatlantic slave trade was an intra-American machine. South Carolina was founded in 1670 by sugar planters from Barbados. They didn't just bring people, they brought a Caribbean culture. They brought a Caribbean legal system. They brought thousands of seasoned enslaved Caribbeans straight from the islands to the mainland. The bloodlines of the American South are inextricably tied to the Caribbean. You cannot surgically extract the foundational black American from the Jamaican, the Haitian, or the Puerto Rican. The colonizers mixed us, moved us, and sold us across the exact same waters. But Tariq needs you to believe that you're an isolated, unique species, because if you realize your brother in Kingston or your sister in San Juan shares your exact struggle and your exact same bloodline, you might just unite. And if you unite, you don't need Tariq Nasheed's webinars to tell you exactly who your enemies are. And here's why this really sickens me. The conversation around lineage-based reparations is completely valid. The descendants of American chattel slavery are owed a specific, calculable debt from the United States government for centuries of uncompensated labor, redlining, and systemic terror. That is a righteous, necessary political demand. But Tariq Nasheed has poisoned the well. He hijacked a righteous political movement and he turned it into a toxic, xenophobic cult of personality. He took the black radical tradition, the tradition of Malcolm X, of Assata Shakur, of the Black Panthers, a tradition built on global anti-imperialist solidarity, and he traded it in for a fake Native American casino check from Uncle Sam. He teaches his followers to hate the African. He teaches them to despise the Latino. He attacks successful black women as bedwenches. He claims every black man who doesn't agree with him must be buck-broken. He views the entire world through a sick, psychological lens of domination and humiliation because at his core, he never stopped being K-Flex the pickup artist. He treats the entire community like a vulnerable mark at the nightclub. He isolates you, feeds you your insecurities, tells you everyone else is out to get you, and then reaches directly into your pocket. Tariq Nasheed is an intellectual slumlord. He buys up the dilapidated, burning trauma of our history, slaps a cheap coat of xenophobic paint on it, and rents it back to our people at a premium. He's the warden of the sunken place. He doesn't build, he quarantines. You think you're protecting hip-hop, Tariq? You're suffocating it. You're trying to shrink a global, transcendent, boundary-breaking culture to fit inside the tiny, bitter parameters of your own grift. Hip-hop was born from the ashes of the Bronx because black and brown kids refused to go quietly in the dark. It was a polyethnic survival mechanism. Black Americans laid the foundation, built the engine, and provided the soul. Puerto Ricans laid the bricks, painted the walls, and guarded the doors. It was an irreducible complex of shared suffering and shared triumph. By trying to purge the Latinos, the Caribbeans, and the Africans from the narrative, Tariq Nasheed is committing cultural treason. He's doing the work of the oppressor for free. He keeps us divided. He makes Black Americans afraid of their own reflection in the diaspora. He keeps us fighting over crumbs while the elite walk away with the bakery. Tariq Nasheed and his FBA isolationists are not the vanguard of hip-hop. They're termites in the floorboard. And as of today, your lease is up. You're officially evicted. You do not speak for the culture. You do not speak for the pioneers. You're a ventriloquist for bitter old heads and a poverty pimp who traded the street corner for a YouTube studio. And that is the nastiest work of all. Man, that's the autopsy. The receipts are in the description. The history of the architects, the Intra-American slave trade database. Go read it. Do not let these internet trolls rewrite our history. And if you're tired of the division, if you're sick of xenophobic timeshare salesmen tearing our culture apart, man, smash that like button. We're building an army of truth tellers on this channel. Get in the comments right now. Do you agree that hip-hop was a polyethnic creation? Do you think that the FBA movement is helping or destroying the Black community? I want to hear from every single one of you. But keep it respectful. I'm not your average friendly YouTuber. I'm chasing that 1,000 subscriber mark so I can keep pulling the mask off these frauds. So if you rock with the truth, hit subscribe. But if you don't do that, until next time, be the person that you'd like to meet. Peace.
Oh man, I'm about to pop out. And you know I brought the drop out.